So I went to the president of the company that I worked for at the time. I says, how do I go into sales? Because those guys have all the power and they make all the money. He just laughed at me and said, John, you're not cut out for it. You will never be a salesperson. That's all I needed to hear.
Well, that's John Bankson, owner and CEO of Northwest Functional Fitness, recalling a moment that entirely redirected his career. John was one of fewer than 10,000 Cisco certified network experts in the world. He'd served as a network engineer, running communications for the entire Iraq and Afghanistan military operations. He had the technical credentials that companies competed for. But when his boss told him he'd never make it in sales, John saw it as a challenge he couldn't ignore. He'd go on to become a top sales performer, then leverage that drive to found and run Northwest Functional Fitness, an owner of 4 F45 fitness franchises in Seattle, with a 5th location opening soon. I'm Aaron Burnett, and this is John's story on Moments That Matter from EO Seattle. Tell me your story, your personal story, your entrepreneurial story.
Well, I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and my parents owned the farm, and they never went to work because being on the farm was work.
Yeah.
So I grew up not realizing that I was in an entrepreneurial household without really thinking about it. And so when I got into the real world, I'm like, this is a lot different than what I grew up with.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't want to farm, but I really missed the entrepreneurial piece of life that, my parents raised me with. Learning how to do pretty much everything out of necessity, being a diesel mechanic to knowing how to weld to everything you have to know how to operate a farm because you have to work on all the stuff, right? Requirement to be self-sufficient and be an entrepreneur was just something that has always driven me. But, we didn't have a lot of money. So when I told my mom I wanted to go to college, going out of state was like not really something that was possible. And I know I want to do something bigger and better than staying in Nebraska. And so I always loved watching military movies, and my uncle's in the military. And so I got a scholarship in the Army. And I was able to go out of state, and the Army paid for my college. Changed me a lot.
How did it change you? I can only imagine that experience because you weren't just in the Army, you were active and in Iraq, right?
In college, I was in ROTC. So I was, I was one of those students that had to wake up at 5 a.m. and go work out every day.
Yeah.
And then go to class and then study military history and military philosophy and leadership and all these other things about becoming a military officer. The payback was serving active duty in the military, to Germany. That's where I wanted to go. So that's where my family immigrated from. And so I took German in college, and then I put my request down to go to Germany. And sure enough, I got assigned to Heidelberg, Germany, the 7th Signal Brigade. I was a signal officer. And then halfway through my training in Georgia, they're like, no, we're redirecting you to Belgium. I'm like, oh, great. I don't speak French.
Right.
It ended up being a good decision. And, I worked for NATO. I was assigned to there in Belgium, and I learned French at the time. During that time, that was when the Bosnia conflict was going on. So I went to Bosnia. That was my first time went down to see the horrors of humanity. And then I got out of the military in 2000. I was working on civilian jobs. 9/11 happened. I'm like, how do I get back? I think a lot of people felt the overwhelming patriotism when 9/11 happened, and everybody put their American flags out. I'm like, I got to get back. I got to figure out how. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, got a residency down in Houston. So we're moving to Houston, and I started applying for jobs, and I got an opportunity to be a private military contractor in Iraq. After I got out of the military, I didn't want to really manage people anymore because I found out what a pain in the butt it is to manage people.
Right.
Every business owner will tell you employees are challenging.
Yeah.
To say the least. But so I went into the office. I went to my engineering and computer science background, and I became one of the top engineers in the world. So that's why the military wanted me. They primarily hired me first for cybersecurity. I was going to be one of the security engineers running security firewalls in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then I got over there. While that was needed, they had some other people doing that. So I became the lead network engineer running all the communications for the internet for Afghanistan and Iraq, communicating with Kuwait. So that was fun. It was an interesting time in my life.
Yeah.
Really changed my perspective on life.
How did that affect you? What did you rethink?
I became a pacifist.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to. I used to think war was okay and an acceptable solution, but now I've seen the horrors of it. I get it. Sometimes it happens, but when it happens, it needs to be decisive and quick and violent and not drawn out. Afghanistan and Iraq was a 20-year endeavor.
Yeah.
It was
with no winner.
No.
You and I know one another. I know you to be an optimistic and positive person. How did you emerge from that experience and remain optimistic?
I met a lot of Iraqis and great people, and they were positive. And to see them, excited about capitalism coming to their country and democracy coming to their country. And yeah, they were concerned about the violence and stuff as well. But there was opportunity there amongst the violence, just as it was in Bosnia. I still remember eating in a restaurant in Sarajevo that was just amazing. And they were opened up in a war-torn, city. You could still get a steak and a glass of wine in Sarajevo. And this entrepreneurial spirit was alive, even in the middle of conflict.
So you came back, and what was next for you professionally?
So when I started doing engineering, I wanted to obviously make some money, right? And I thought
you had a unique set of credentials too, I would assume, that made you really sought after in the market.
Well, I had a computer science degree and a master's in management information systems. And then I got this cert called Cisco Certified Network Expert.
Sure.
There's less than 10,000 of us in the world. When I got mine. Felt that when I got that, I was, I'm at the top of my game. And I soon realized that, no, I wasn't, that the salespeople were making way more money than I was.
Sure.
So I went to the president of the company that I worked for at the time. I says, how do I go into sales? Because those guys have all the power and they make all the money. He just laughed at me and said, John, you're not cut out for it. You will never be a salesperson. That's all I needed to hear. I was on a
That was the red flag.
I was on a mission.
Yeah.
If you tell me no, I can't do something, I'm going to go find a way to do it. So I went into pre-sales, which is kind of engineering with sales mixed, and I was really good at it. And everybody would use me, and I was very successful at it. And so when I moved to Houston after Iraq, I became a pre-sales engineer. About that time, my wife got her fellowship here in Washington at UW. So I found a company in Seattle that did the same stuff. Naturally went into pre-sales there, and I talked to the VP here locally and says, hey, I want to go into sales. And we worked out a plan. And eventually, within 2 years, I was in sales.
Yeah.
And I was the top sales guy very shortly in the region. That's how I got into sales. I just, had to overcome the introvert part.
Sure.
And I had to maybe grow as a person.
Yeah. And you had an almost 20-year career in sales, right?
Yes. And I got tired of it. The thing that drew me to sales the most, I think, is because it's somewhat entrepreneurial. I worked full commission. That was my favorite. It was feast or famine. And everything I killed, I got to take home for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Great. My company never really questioned my expenses because I was making so much money for them.
Sure.
And I basically ran my sales business like my own business within parameters, but it was close. And then we got bought. And we got a new manager, and like, ooh, you guys are making way too much money in sales.
Right.
They put you on a base plus, and they just kept whittling it down. I'm like, this is no longer feels entrepreneurial. It feels like a corporate job again. And that's when I started looking for my next plan.
That's a strange and often repeated pattern, that there's maybe a new CEO or a new set of management who come in and decide the sales guys are making too much money.
Yep.
And it's always wrong. I think philosophically, the sales guys should make the most money in the company.
And you shouldn't punish your high performers.
No.
It's a good way to get rid of them.
Yeah. I would assume you know what made you a very good salesperson. Do you have a sense for what that was?
I was relationship oriented because I was never really good at asking for the sale.
Sure.
That was always the tough part, right? But I knew if I built a good, solid relationship with somebody, showed them my expertise and showed them I added value, that they would just want to buy from me.
Right.
And that's what worked.
Yeah.
It worked really well. I wasn't the aggressive frat boy sales guy coming out of college says, hey, I got 15 things. Which one do you want to buy? That was a lot of my peers were like that. They were really pushy. I was not pushy at all. I was there to solve problems for my customers. And that's how I perceive myself. I
suspect your technical expertise and also just kind of the fact that you weren't pushy, but also that you were just inherently trustworthy. That counts.
They could ask me a question. Most of the time I could give an answer like right off the cuff. It was a technical thing. I would say, well, this is the answer. And if I didn't know it, I could go get it. Before we continue, I want to tell you about the community that made this podcast possible. The Seattle chapter of EO, that's Entrepreneurs Organization. It's not networking. It's not selling to each other. It's real entrepreneurs sharing real challenges and solutions. If you have a business that does at least $1 million a year in revenue, and you're curious about joining a community that gets what you're going through, check out EO Seattle. So you tired of sales? And tired of corporate sales.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And that led you to?
When I turned 40, my kids were 5 or 6. And after the Army, I got out of the Army, I stopped working out.
Sure.
And I got out, I'm like, well, I don't have to do it anymore. So I didn't.
Right.
When I got married, I was 265 pounds. And it wasn't muscle. My son, one of his kids came over, and I made some like, hey, shorty. And he looked at me and says, what's up, fatso?
Ooh.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I realized like, oh my God, I am fat.
Yeah.
So I got to get in shape. I need to be around for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I just turned 40. And so I found something called CrossFit.
Yeah.
It was very military style, kind of a workout. And I did that for 6 years. As I was thinking about leaving sales, I'm like, I want to go do something that's fun, sustainable for me, for my life, something that will tie into my goals of being fit and healthy and living a long life where I can be mobile my whole life,
Sure.
wheelchair bound or in some retirement home. After my third injury in CrossFit, I'm like, I gotta find something slightly different. CrossFit's, was just, a little too, I wouldn't say intense, but insane maybe is the right word.
Mm-hmm.
The third time I got hurt was a heavy overhead squat. Just hurt my left shoulder. And that was out for like several months. I'd been looking to open up a CrossFit box during this time. That was maybe that was the solution. So I was looking at all kinds of business things like, what do I want to do? Man, Facebook's pretty darn good. They knew exactly what I was looking for. And so they threw up a F45 ad. I'm like, what's this? And I watched the video like, well, that looks pretty cool. So I clicked on the learn more button, like so many people do.
Sure.
And I filled out my information, sent it in. And next thing you know, I get an email from a guy named Damien. And we got on a call and we talked about it. And I was going to Vegas for a conference. And this was back in 2016 or 2017.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, there's not very many in the United States right now, because this is the F45 is from Australia. Go, okay, well, just where are they at? So we got some in Vegas, some in LA, and some in Pennsylvania. I'm like, well, I'm going to Vegas in a couple of weeks. Well, heck, just go do a drop-in, go do a workout, just see what it's like. So I did. Halfway through the workout, I knew that was my future. Light bulb clicked.
What did you love about it?
The easiest way to sum it up is it was everything I loved about CrossFit, but none of the stuff I hated about CrossFit was there.
What falls in those two categories? Because we've talked about this before. I'm quite curious. I haven't done F45. I've done CrossFit.
Yeah.
I'm up to 2 injuries. I don't have a third, but I think maybe I should try to avoid the third.
The community aspect of fitness is huge.
Yeah.
I've gone to Gold's Gym before. I've walked around. I've been there. I've done the 3 hours trying to wait on the squat machine and trying to, what am I going to do today? Oh, I'll do this. And halfway through, it's like, it's kind of hard. I guess I just won't do the last set. I'm kind of tired. And that's very common. We hear that a lot with people. I've done the P90X thing. Oh, I've tried that by myself. There's nobody there to drive me and motivate me to go to that last second, right?
Yeah.
CrossFit did that. F45 does that. You have your people you work out with, the buddy that's next to you. And you don't want to quit before they quit. And if you quit and the coach sees you quit, and they're like, hey, come on, John, you can do 2 more seconds or do 2 more reps or whatever it is. That makes a huge difference. CrossFit's a high intensity style workout, just like F45. And I just love that.
Yeah.
CrossFit was somewhat inefficient because you would maybe do a 10-minute or 12-minute high intensity workout. And then you'd have, after you maybe did 30 minutes of
lifting,
like of educational stuff, like form performance type stuff. But at 45, it's 45 minutes or 40 minutes of high intensity in the workout, with 5 minutes on the front end of warming up. That feeling you have in the workout of like, I can't quit because there's everybody around me looking at me.
Sure.
They're not, but that's what you feel like.
Right.
It just drives you, and it really makes that workout super effective.
All right. So you loved it. You'd done a drop in. What next?
I started looking at territories. I think I signed my first lease without even really I don't think I had a lawyer read it. I read through it and it looks good, and I signed it.
Yeah.
And I still have that lease today. It's okay. But there's things that I should have put in there. And so I signed the franchise agreements, paid some money, for the franchise fees, and didn't know what I was doing. But I didn't care because I knew I was going to do it and nothing was going to stop me. And I was just going to figure it out on the way.
Is this a side hustle
It was.
at the time?
I was still working my sales job.
Yeah.
And that was the intention, because that was the thing that the sales guy at F45 told, 5-10 hours a week, that's all you need. You hire a general manager, you'll be fine.
Sure.
It took a lot more time mine than I anticipated. But, we did the build out. My first 2 territories were the South District location I have in Queen Anne. And we were in negotiations on the Queen Anne location where we're currently at. And they ended up going with another tenant, another fitness concept. And so I'm like, oh crap, I've got 2 franchises. I got to find another territory. So I quickly found a place in Northgate. It was super easy. I'll do that one. And so we're going down the LOI with that. And I get a call from my broker. Hey, the other gym fell through at Queen Anne. You still want that location? Like, yeah, I guess so. So I signed a 3rd franchise agreement.
So you had only one open at the time.
I didn't have any open.
You didn't have any open?
No. But now I have a 3rd territory. And while I was at, I'm like, well, let's just do a 4th one.
Sure.
So I signed for West Seattle. So I get Queen Anne opened up. It got delayed. It was tough first opening. Yeah, I learned so much on the first opening. And the second one was a little bit better. And by the time we got to the 3rd one, which is South District, it was great. We opened up profitable. And then the pandemic hit 2 months later. Yeah, so we were shut down. When that happened, I called F45 and says, hey, I can't open in West Seattle. Let's just cancel that agreement. They said, okay. 5 years later, I came back and re-signed for that.
Right. How long were you shut down?
The 2-week shutdown lasted 3 months. And then we opened up with severe restrictions.
Sure.
We could only have like one person in the studio at a time with a trainer.
Yep.
Then the second shutdown happened was the Delta variant or whatever it was. Another 3 months shutdown. One thing the government doesn't realize is you can't just shut down a member-based business.
Right.
It's not like a light switch where you just turn it on and off and everything's back the way it was.
Yeah.
You had to go back and resell everybody. In all, there was like a 2-year period where we were either shut down or severely restricted. Fortunately, I had made enough money in sales that I had capital to survive it.
Yeah.
If I didn't have capital reserves, I would have went bankrupt.
Right.
And I talk to people when you start business all the time. Like I was talking to this guy the other day, he wanted to open up an F45. Like, well, what's your financial situation? Like, well, I'm just going to borrow my 401k. Like, well, what about reserves? Well, I have none. So you need to slow down a bit, because if you don't have any capital reserves, what happens when you have a $10,000 negative month? You can't make payroll. What are you going to do? And you got this, I don't know. Like, exactly.
Yeah, right.
As horrible as COVID was for my business, it made me a much better businessman. I looked at every penny we spent. I totally understood why my parents fuss over pennies on expenses. Like, this part's like, $2 cheaper. We should go with this one instead. And now I get it.
Yeah.
Every penny matters when things are tight. And I still try to operate my business like things. This is really good business practice to, be frugal and not spendthrift.
During COVID, I got really intimately acquainted with our cash flow forecast in a way that I hadn't needed to be before or hadn't been before. I'm a little less so now, but I certainly pay more attention.
I developed this cash flow forecasting process because it was like, how am I going to shuffle this money around to make payroll? And sometimes it's like down to like a few $100s of margin. And I still manage my cash flow that way today. Still, I don't need to.
Yeah.
Man, it just makes me feel good knowing that the ins and outs of my cash flow.
Yeah, it creates a sense of security. I love looking at cash flow forecast and being able to look out a year. So today you have 4 locations, about to open a 5th location, coming back to West Seattle. When does that one open?
We're stuck in the lease negotiations. We have been for 15 months, believe it. So
that's incredible.
We have the lease fully negotiated, but in commercial leases, there's these exclusivity clauses on big shopping centers.
Right.
9 tenants had exclusivity clauses. We've got 8 waivers signed, including from Fitness 19. They're like a competitor. They say, sure, we'll let F45 in here. Yeah. But Ross Dress for Less is not, because they want concessions on the lease.
It doesn't have to do with you.
No. So they're using it as a lever to get something out of the landlord. They've agreed to terms on it. Now they're just working through the legalese part of it. The lawyers are fighting out the details.
Yeah.
So
what brought you to EO? And how long have you been in EO?
I've been in EO for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
One of my locations is down in Puyallup, and I'm in the chamber down there. And I was talking to a friend of mine down there about, I think I really need a business coach. Somebody like a CEO coach to help me be a better business leader. John, you really should check out this place called EO Seattle. I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
And I was down in a happy hour event in a chamber event.
Yeah.
And I felt that imposter syndrome we always talk about.
Yeah.
And I felt lonely at the top. I couldn't talk to anybody about the things I was doing. I mean, I could, but nobody cared.
Right.
Nobody understood. My wife didn't understand. I mean, she tried to, but it was hard for her to relate to those because it was.
Yeah. There's so much context that is lacking.
Correct.
Yeah.
I didn't have my tribe. I was a fairly new business owner, like 4 years into it. And I still didn't feel like I had my sea legs as a business owner. I just felt like I had so much more to learn. Of course, now that I'm in EO, I realize that everybody's got the same problems.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, at least I'm not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel better because of that.
I've interviewed 9 or 10 EO Seattle members, and the consistent theme is imposter syndrome and felt lonely. There were things I couldn't share with other people.
Right.
And then the other consistent theme is, oh, everybody feels like that. That's kind of reassuring. Yeah.
It's reassuring in a disturbing kind of way. But yes.
Right, exactly.
So everybody's faking it till they make it, huh?
Yeah. I think what's true is that there are elements of the entrepreneurial journey aspects of being a CEO or a company owner where at any given time you're less sure, and elements where you are more sure, and hopefully you evolve and mature over time.
I've had several businesses before, but I've never had employees until this one, like rental property companies that I've managed my properties in and stuff. And I'm always thinking, I don't want to hire people. That's scary. I don't know how to hire people. I don't want how to run HR. I don't want to run payroll. I don't know how to do that. That's all complicated stuff.
Sure.
It's scary. The stuff you think is scary is like so easy. It's not that challenging, but it keeps so many people from taking that leap. Somebody always asks me, like, well, how do you start this? What made you think you could start this business? Like, well, I see these like construction guys that have no college education starting a business. If they can do it, surely I can do it. It can't be that complicated. They're like, oh, I never thought about it like that. But
Yeah. I wonder if some of it too doesn't go back to growing up on a farm and just being raised with a sense of self-reliance.
It's possible. Yeah.
I wasn't on a big farm, but I grew up in a rural area with a similar sort of sensibility. You can fix anything, you can build anything.
Yeah.
And so I actually didn't know any different.
When I look at society, you see immigrants coming in and they own businesses and they're successful. And then you see people who are raised in America and they have these 9-to-5 jobs and they're like, I can't afford a house. Like, what's the difference? Well, the people that came to America, nobody told them they couldn't do it. But our kids are told at school, well, no, you need to go do this job. You go to college. And business stuff is really hard. We're trained in society to believe that being a business owner is too hard. And people coming to America as an immigrant, nobody tells them that. So they just do it and they're successful. It's surprising how many small businesses are owned by immigrants, though.
It's impressive.
Disproportionate compared to our society, to our natives.
Yeah. Here. You can also see the same thing in the upper ranks, particularly of the tech sector.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. People aren't willing to take risks, aren't willing to take chances, or they're fear.
You have little kids.
I do. Well, not little anymore. 16 and 18.
16 and 18. How have you taught them to be risk takers? Has that been a focus, and how have you gone about it?
Hopefully, by example. I saw some pictures of my son Logan, when he was probably 8 or 9 years old, with a sledgehammer, knocking a wall out with me. I try to be self-sufficient. I like being self-reliant. One of the traits I learned in the military is never ask your troops to do anything you wouldn't do. And it's even better if they can see you doing something before you ask them to do it. Like, like it's, hey, go clean that toilet. Well, there's 5 toilets. Let's clean them together. That's
sure.
Totally different. Like, okay, no problem, sir. So I've coached in my classes, so I know what that experience is like. I've done sales, the gym sales stuff. So they know I know how to do that. I know what that's like. I know how awkward those cold phone calls can be. I can walk them through that because I have that experience. At the same time, I'm also self-sufficient in other things. I like building stuff. I grew up on a farm building things with dad, from welding to rebuilding motors to building sheds to whatever, right? Recently, we're replacing the flooring at one of my studios. I need to do it in a way where it's not disruptive. If I hired a contractor, I go, okay, we need to shut down for 2 days while we do this. Like, well, I don't want to shut down for 2 days. So my son and I have been removing and replacing these 1 meter square rubber tiles 2 rows at a time on the weekends. And so we do it together. And so he's getting some work ethic out of it. He's seeing like some construction skills, and we're talking about business at the same time. And so I just try to set the example, even though I'm the CEO of a company, hard work is not beneath me.
Right.
And that anybody can do it. And that sometimes to be successful in business, you can't just sit in your defined role. You have to do what's needed to make it happen.
What have you learned through EO? How has EO changed you?
I think EO has made me a better person. Yeah, I never thought I would say that. I thought it made me a better business person.
Sure, right.
Growing up, the culture was boys don't cry. You don't talk about your emotions. You don't talk about politics. You don't talk about money. Those are the things you didn't talk about, right? You could talk about religion because I grew up in the Midwest. And that was fine. In fact, you were encouraged to.
Sure.
I've never seen a shrink or psychologist or whatever you want to call them. I've never talked about my feelings with really anybody. Being in forum, talking about my feelings and how I feel and doing those reflections have really changed me. To have those conversations, to be able to do that, feel comfortable and safe doing it.
Yeah.
I never thought that would be the impact, but it has been. I mean, it's made me a better business person too.
Sure.
But I just feel like I'm better at expressing my feelings and reflecting on things now. It's just made me think differently.
Yeah, I've had the same experience.
Yeah.
When you look back on your entrepreneurial journey, and when you look back on the last couple of years, do you envision that things would have turned out differently if you hadn't joined EO, or would have been the same, but the quality of experience might have been different? Or
I would have survived.
Sure.
My business would have been okay, but I think my business is better off because of EO. We're getting to roll out employee ownership in the company. It's something I always wanted to do, but I had no idea how to do it. And I got several experience shares from my forum and some from other people in EO about how they did it. I'm like, I got some great ideas. It really shortcut the process, made me feel more comfortable with it. pros and cons of doing things different ways.
Yeah.
And that certainly helped out a lot. And, it's given me some connections that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And confidence, be able to do that too.
Yeah.
I've only been in Yale for a couple of years, and, I'm a moderator on my
Mhm.
forum, and I'm on the board. And people are like, how'd you do that so fast? Nobody told me I couldn't.
Sure.
I just put my hand up.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, do you want to? Like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. I'm kind of a dive in kind of guy.
Mhm.
One of the SEB co-chairs, I was just talking to a prospect the other day, and we were talking about like, the cost of it and
Mhm.
was it worth it? And I says, look, if you think you're just going to give us some money, you're going to get business out of it, that's not going to happen. Says you have to be all in. You have to, carry your own bag. You have to put the time in. And if you do, you'll get the results out of it. It's the same with pretty much anything in life.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of Yale members that go to forum and that's it. And I think they miss out on so much in Yale.
I agree. That's been my experience. So I've been in coming up on 10 years.
Mhm.
For the first 7 years, I was in a very close-knit forum.
Yeah.
And we were mostly just a forum.
Yeah.
Even when we went to chapter retreat, we would not infrequently have our own dinners off to the side and that sort of thing. And I didn't really go to other events until several people exited, that forum disbanded. I joined another forum and started attending other events. And it's an entirely different EO experience for me.
Yeah. It's been a great accelerator for me. When I first joined, I didn't know anybody. I went to events. It took a while to get to know people, but now that I'm on the board, I know the majority of people in EO. Not everybody, but I know a lot.
Yeah.
It's been so helpful for me to expand my network, expand my friendships, expand my relationships, become better at just different skills too.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed talking with you. Thanks for doing this. Yeah.
It's been fun.